All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Readiness Institute Speaker Series. The Readiness Institute of Penn State is a Penn State outreach initiative with a mission to enable education, industry, and community partners to coordinate, collaborate, and create experiences for learners to achieve community and future readiness. The goal of the Readiness Institute Speaker Series is to equip every learner of all ages with the skills, attitudes, and values necessary to design and lead a purposeful life by learning from community, industry, and education professionals. The community and future readiness skill for today's speaker series is emotional wellness. According to the National Institutes of Health, a part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, emotional wellness is the ability to successfully handle life stresses and adapt to change in difficult times. Right now, I am very excited to introduce our special guest for today, Elena Runco, Director, Student Support Social Workers at Pittsburgh Public Schools. Elena, how are you today?
Hi, thank you. I'm fine, and it's so nice of you to have me. I'm happy to be here.
And we are very excited for you to be here today as our special guest on emotional wellness, something I know that you know very well and serve as an expert in this field. So, Elena, to get started, I just want to ask you to introduce yourself and describe your personal and professional pathway so we get a chance to learn a little bit more about you.
That sounds great. My name is Elena, and I am Director of Student Support Services at Pittsburgh Public, and that position used to be one position, and now it's split. So I am Director of Social Workers here at Pittsburgh Public. So my path started a long time ago. I always wanted to be a teacher growing up, and by the time I was ready to go to college, my school counselor and everyone around me told me that there would be no jobs for teachers. So I always wanted to help people and thought that I wanted to be a therapist. So I went to school for social work. There's many different avenues you can take in social work. So I took the clinical route, and I ended up working for CYF, which is, child abuse and neglect. And I think that because usually when people enter that position, you're in the beginning stages and you need actually more experience to do well in there. It scared me, and it sent me back to graduate school. And after graduate school, I worked for community mental health for 28 years. And I had a lot of different experiences there. During that time, I also worked with a psychiatrist that I admired. He asked me to do his private practice with him, and it was with sexual abuse. And I just had my first child. And what I realized after doing that for about 9 months was that emotionally, I couldn't separate what was happening with the children that I was seeing. So I decided not to do that anymore. I continued to work in the community mental health agency. I was a licensed practitioner, which was rare at that time. So they gave me all kinds of experiences, drug and alcohol, mental health, with adults, children, families. So it was a great experience, but I always wanted to be in schools. So I decided to get out of the therapeutic end of it and, partially, and go into the prevention department. So that allowed me to go into schools. And I was able to go into many different school districts and provide emotional support and classroom presentations, as well as school-based mental health. So that got me into schools. I went back to school to Pitt to get my home and school visitor certification. That was the requirement to be a school social worker. At that time, it's changed since then, but at that time. And I wanted to go to Pittsburgh Public, but I didn't live in the city, and that was the requirement at that time. So, it just kept circling around, and I, worked more years at the community mental health. And then one day a friend of mine said, hey, there's a school district that's looking for a school social worker. I went and interviewed and ended up there for 12 years. And then I moved into administration. And, I just want to say this part that people ask me all the time, do I miss the direct practice? Because that has been, my passion, working directly with kids. And the answer to that is yes, but I still find ways of doing that. I still, even in this position, go into, we just had a school that the social worker's on leave, and I went in to work with some of the kids that needed some more support and an assessment. And then I still have my private practice that I do direct work.
So now you're in a school setting, and we're very lucky that you get a chance to work in a school setting every day as an educator to educator based upon your experience and expertise. And as we know right now, a lot of students are transitioning back to school. A lot of educators from having being out of school for so long, and the emotional wellness piece that is now part of this, and students being at home for so long and coming back to school and dealing with the pandemic and so forth. So why is emotional wellness so important right now, not just professionally in our jobs, but also in our personal life, from students to teachers to just the workforce in general? Why is emotional wellness more important today than ever before?
I think it's important always, but especially today. And that's because if you're not taking care of yourself emotionally, a lot of us have been through a lot of trauma. It doesn't enable you to then do your job if you don't deal with what's been going on with you emotionally. It's important for students as well as staff and just anyone in any profession to be aware of what you're going through, what you need, seek that out. So for instance, most employers have employee assistance programs. At PPS, we have an employee assistance program. So the teachers are under a lot of stress. All the staff, social workers, are under a lot of stress coming back into school. And I provided a professional learning so that they know how to reach out to what this provides. It provides free therapy. It provides how to deal with stress, a lot of things like that for staff. Then we come to the students. The students have gone through, like all of us, losses, stresses, fears, illnesses, along with things that have always been going on in their families or in their communities. So we made sure one of the tasks that I had before school started was to make sure that all 54 schools have supports in place. So we have social workers and counselors in all of the buildings. They are the main people that you want to reach out to when you are in school, and because they can access all the other services. But in addition to that, we have community providers that can assess what might be going on and find the community resources or what's already in the schools to help support you while you're going through school or afterwards. And not just you, but your families. It's important to include the families in that too.
So you mentioned a couple things that Pittsburgh Public Schools are doing a great job with, and Pittsburgh Public Schools, they're the heart and soul of our region, right? The largest school district and so many services and so forth. And what's something you think when students transition back to school? You mentioned a couple already. So what's something you think, or some things that you think Pittsburgh Public Schools is just doing really well, providing services to students? And you mentioned even some staff too, or maybe some parents and some family members and communities. What are some things specifically that Pittsburgh Public Schools are doing really well in dealing with emotional wellness?
I've never seen, and I've been in many school districts. Like I said, I used to go into several different ones in my other position, but I've never seen a district that has so much support. We have support through our county services. So I can't say enough about the social workers and school counselors, though. They're your first line of defense. They're the people that you want to go to first. But in addition to that, we have a student assistant program that if anyone can refer, you can refer yourself to it. And what it does is there's a outside provider that also can do an assessment to make sure that you're getting the right level of care and whatever that you need, whether that's in the community or in school. The other things that the schools are telling me is that they're trying to have almost advisory groups, and you're familiar with this, Mr. Elio, but where a teacher would stay with those same 15 or 20 students throughout, the grade, so they really get to know them and build trust. And the students can go to them to talk with them about it, but then they can link them to, whoever they need to in the school as well. And I think that's a big way to engage the students as well as their parents. So the other part of it is that people are afraid to come back to school. So attendance is an issue. So our social workers are reaching out to families. They're going to community events to say, hey, welcome back. We're here. Do you remember us? It's safe. And we put protocols in place to make sure that everybody is safe coming back in. And I think for staff, learning to set boundaries. We all want to help everybody, but you can't do it 24/7 because we all have our own lives and our own personal lives. So the message I want to give you if you're going into this field is that you have to learn to set some boundaries of what you can do, because that's the way you're going to be most helpful. We don't want anyone burning out after 1 or 2 years.
Elena, you said something that was very important, and I appreciate the fact you said about setting boundaries and so forth. If a family or a student, you said counselors, social workers, what's a first step? If I'm a father at home and I have my 3 kids and they're really anxious about getting back to school, what should be the first email, phone call? Who should be made to at Pittsburgh Public or really any school district? Is it maybe a guidance counselor? And as a father, what would I say in that phone call as the first step to ease that anxiety and so forth?
So I think what I've learned about Pittsburgh Public, I've started here in February just to give you some background during COVID. But what I've learned about the schools is that the school counselor and the social worker, especially in the elementary, play like a dual role. So sometimes there's just a school counselor or just a school social worker. In the high school, there's both. If you as a parent reach out to anyone in that position, and that's what I would recommend, you email them or call them and you just say, hey, I'm not sure what's going on. I just want to reach out to you to say, what can you do as a school to help my children adjust to going back to school? And that might be that the school counselor or social worker greets them when they're coming off the bus, or invites you to come in before school even begins, or once it begins, they might want to do a family session with you just so that you're more familiar with how the school runs and to lower anxiety to make sure everything's safe. So you need to reach out to, that's the best person to reach out to.
Just take that first step, email, call. If no one calls you back in a day or two, just continue to follow up on that, because I know there's a lot of busy things happening right now in the school as well. My last question for you, and you talked about this a little bit too, whether you're a student, a professional in a school, professional in any setting, or just life, or you're at home with your children, whatever it is, what's something, you said this before, we need to take care of ourselves emotionally,
Mhm.
because if we're not at our best emotionally, no matter what hard skill we have or no matter what we can bring to our organization or sitting in a classroom learning, or we will not be at our best. So what's something that you do or you think someone can do to really help with themselves emotionally to get to that point where they feel that they can give their best? So you can share something maybe that you do or something that you know that works, that you've seen in other people, but really reflect and saying, this helps me, or I know people this has helped. Really give my best So I'm in a good emotional state. I can handle some stress and I can really perform the task at the best of my ability.
I think there's not just one thing. I think we have to look at it as a whole person, and it might be a little bit different for each person. But I think that there's several things. One is that you have to treasure the relationships you have and use them to, be talking to people so that you don't feel alone. Connect. I know we were in lockdown. There are ways we still tried to connect, right? We're connecting now, we're not in person. But now that we can do some things in person, please reach out and connect to people. Another thing to do is any kind of exercise that you enjoy, not something that you choose, you feel you have to do, but it's exercise to walk your dog, to play with your pet, to, jump rope, to whatever you like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to like it though, for it to not be a stressor in and of itself that you're like, oh, another thing I have to do. And I personally, when I'm feeling anxious at night, especially, I think of what I'm grateful for. But a client reminded me that this was new to me too, is that we always come up with the big things, oh, I'm grateful I have a home. Not everyone has a home. I'm grateful I have, a job. I'm grateful. But the little things that can change every day. What are you grateful for that went well today? And that could just be, I didn't run into as much traffic and I got to work early. And so I was able to have a cup of coffee before I started everything. Or it could just be, hearing from someone that you haven't heard from and you're happy to. I didn't mention it here, but my son goes to Penn State. He's in London right now on a semester abroad. And I was really just kind of struggling with stress. And then I got a message from him and it just changed everything for me. So what are you grateful for that are the small things, not just the big things? That works for me.
I love that. So tonight, when I go to sleep, I'm going to lay down. I'm going to say, I am grateful for today's speaker series that I had a chance to hear and learn from Elena. Thank you so much. This is such an important topic, emotional wellness. It's should be taught and addressed to everyone, 100% of the population, not when needed, but proactively. I cannot thank you enough for what you have done throughout your career. Whether you know it or not, you have helped hundreds and thousands of people be successful. So thank you for being what you do, a
One more
friend,
thing.
and so forth. And please, yeah, share anything.
One more thing that I forgot that's so big that Pittsburgh Public does, and
Okay.
that's the emotional, I can't talk, the social emotional learning that's embedded in the curriculum. Because
Okay.
what you just said was important. It can't
Please
just
tell
be
us more.
isolated.
Yeah, tell us
Yeah.
more about that because that is very important too. So thanks for bringing that up.
Um, it's just that we follow a curriculum. I think it's called Rethink, and the teachers have been trained to it, and I think a lot of it is done in the health classes, but
Okay.
we're working hard to put it embedded in
Everywhere. Yeah,
everywhere.
you have
And
to.
I think that's crucial, no matter if there's a pandemic going on or not. That's what's going to make a difference.
Yeah. I could not agree with you anymore. I actually asked a high school group of students a few years ago, and I said, what are the top skills that you need to graduate high school to be successful as adults, young adults? And out of the top three, it was emotional wellness. They said, I
Yeah.
understand not just myself, who I am, and how to emotionally succeed, but I also need to understand others.
Yes.
So that was so
Yes.
important. So again, I want to thank you. If you have questions, you're watching this, please follow up with Elena. She's an amazing resource, a educational expert when it comes to emotional wellness. We're so thrilled and just delighted that she could be a guest on the Readiness Institute Speakers Series show today on emotional wellness. So, Elena, thank you. Please keep in touch and please reach out to Elena if you have any questions. So, thank you. Any last thoughts, anything? And before we
Just
go,
want to thank you for having me, and I appreciate it.
no problems. Thank you so much. And please share the speaker series if you think it's appropriate. this topic to help anyone, and please reach out to Elena if you have any questions. And thank you so much for listening to today's Readiness Institute Speaker Series. Thank you.
Thank you.